Hi everyone, Leanne here from Jaded Blossom, and it is time for our December release hop. And I have a couple cards to share with you today. So I'm using the tree stencil from this release, and I'm using Concord 9th inks. So this is sped right up. I've got my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station and a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock that I'm going to be blending on. And that's cut at 4.25 by 5.5, just for ease, like I normally do. I'm using some Post-it tape to divide the trees and to tape it down, and you see I sort of separate the trees out, and I'll be doing some ink blending. Now, that's my little swatch that I made of all my Concord 9th inks, and I'm using Oceanside, Honeysuckle, and Eggplant today. And I'll be using my Tailored Expressions blending brushes also. So I'm just going to quickly just blend on some inks. So I'm starting off with my purple, which is my Eggplant, and you'll see that I just sort of, like no rhyme or reason, I just blend them on. And I'm looking for like non-traditional Christmas colors. So I'm making a couple more Christmas cards to add to my stash. As I told you before, I'm literally scraping the bottom of the barrel right now. I'm completely out. I've already sent them for this year, but still, I'm out. So I've got to restock for next year. So I just sort of show you how I go about my method of doing this. Now, I make a mistake, and it ends up being a happy accident. So, I'll show you this. On my next card, I sort of cut out some of the ink blending, but I give you kind of a, once over of what I do. So there we go. Now, this, like I said, this is sped up to 2 times just because this video was so long. Even though it really didn't take me too long to do this. I don't know why it took so long in the video, but, what are you going to do? So there we go. Now I'm moving on to Oceanside, and I'm just ink blending, and I sort of picked colors that kind of, go together not too badly. And I peel it off, and look, I've got a little smear of ink up there. I don't know if you notice it right up above my purple tree, and it's like, uh-oh, maybe I can hide it. So I keep going because no need to get rid of something that's working, That's kind of crazy. So I'm just going to, put my Post-it tape back on and keep going, because that's my motto. You keep going. I'm already invested in this card, so I'm going to keep going. And if I make some boo-boos, I'll, do some changes along the way. So, sometimes I'm blending it so it's heavier on the top. Sometimes it's heavier from the side. And do you see that? Look at that. I've got some pink now that's sort of off to the side. So it's like, darn it, I got to cover that one up. So what I'm doing is making just a grouping of trees in these kind of bright colors because I thought it would look kind of neat. So that's what I'm going for. So now I'm blending on some purple. Now you could have chosen a bunch of colors. Now Concord 9th inks, these inks that I got are beautiful and fabulous. And there's so many nice colors. It was really hard to choose. So like I said, you could go to town and do a rainbow if you wanted. But I'm just trying to I'm using 3 colors only, and I'm just trying to make it work. So there we go. So the idea is I'm kind of going heavier with these trees that I'm doing right now in my foreground, because now I'm going to have to make a background because I've made a mess of it in the back. So now I'm just trying to decide what am I going to put there beside that purple tree. Oh, I'm going to put this tree. I'm going to overlap it a bit. And I'm going to clean that up, which of course you got to be careful cleaning that up because there's all sorts of little intricate spots on this stencil, and you don't want to, peel them up or bend them. There we go. I was just using a microfiber cloth to get some of the ink off, but you'll see I make more of a mess. This is just my norm though. By the end, I think they turned out really cute. So, no harm, no foul. There we go. So like I said in my last video, are you getting closer to being ready for Christmas? I got one more Christmas present in the mail today. I've got a few more that are being shipped to me, and otherwise I'm getting there. So now you see what I'm doing. I'm decided I'm going to make a background with these trees. And what I'm doing is I'm just, instead of heavily using a blending brush, blending it, I'm pouncing it now. So I'm just applying whatever ink is left on the brush, and if I need to add a little bit more ink, I do. But I'm just pouncing the ink, and I'm making sort of shadows of the trees behind the front trees, so trees that are in the, far background. If it's a little bit foggy, something like that. That's what I'm going for. So now you see I'm just sort of adding the tops of the trees, adding a bunch of colors. If the inks blend a little bit, that's okay. You know, it's not going to hurt anything. But that's what I'm going for. And I think it turned out like pretty nice, actually. I was happy. And these inks do dry back a little bit. So now I've moved on to my card number 2. So this time I'm using the large centerpiece tree, or the biggest tree on this stencil. And I've decided to blend all 3 inks on this one tree. So sort of like a, you know, it's a happy little tree. So I'm blending lots of ink, and I'm trying to make it like a heavy blend because I want this to really be my focal point. And, you know, of course, you know me, I make mistakes. So there'll be some more mistakes on this one. Now, I don't show you the whole like blending of every single tree because this video was so long. So I did cut out some of it. So I did what I did with the other background. Instead of like, you know, blending the ink on, I just pounced it. So, and you see I'm getting kind of some inks on the back. Now you got to be careful. You got to clean up your stencil. That's where I made my mistake. But, you know, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to keep going. And like I said before, I think it turned out really nice. I actually extended the height of some of the trees by just moving the stencil down and making them a little longer, which is kind of fun. You know, that you've got creative license with these trees. You can do whatever you like with them. So now I'm just sort of filling in. And like I said before, I will cut it off and I won't show you all of it, but this is what I'm doing basically. I'm just sort of filling in and pouncing. There we go. So now I've cut to my main. I went back to heavier, like to blend heavily on my center tree again. So now I use the card mat dies to cut out these backgrounds. And I have them in a paper box, and I'm going to be doing some ink splatter with the Distress Ink Picket Fence, or Distress Paint, sorry, Picket Fence, and just a paintbrush. Now be aware that this is permanent, and if you get it on something, you want to clean it up quickly, like it'll wreck your brushes, it'll wreck whatever it gets onto. And even though it was in a box, I still got some splatter where I didn't want it. So all I did is if I got too big of glops, I sort of, you know, touched them with a Kleenex, picked it up, and I just kept going. So I just kept going. I don't show you all my splatter, but I kept going. See, look at, oh, there's a big blob there. I'll pick that up with a Kleenex in a second here. And then I'll just add some more splatter on top. No one will know except for you and me. And that's that. So now I've cut to having them all splattered. There you are. And I've let them dry a bit. So I'm using the rectangle internal scallop dies and Concord and Ninth's Oceanside cardstock. And I cut out, using the rectangle internal scallop dies from Jaded Blossom, I cut out that Oceanside cardstock, and that will be my border. I also used Jaded Blossom borders to make little hills for the bottom of my scenes. And I just used the Nina Solar White, again, an 80 pound. And I cut it first with the card mat die, and then I cut the borders. And you'll notice they don't have to be perfectly lined up because the frame is going to be forgiving. So I'm just trying to line up the trunks so the trunks look reasonable behind the snow drift. And then I'm just going to trim off the edge with my Tim Holtz shears. There we go, and I'll do the other one. Now you'll notice that when you use Distress Paint in Picket Fence on these inks, even though they dried, I dried them with my heat tool actually. A little bit of, it's like the what's it called? The Picket Fence ink, the white ink or the white paint kind of picked up some of the pigment from behind. So it's not super white, the splatter. And I'm okay with it. It kind of looks pretty. It's kind of like a rainbow of splatter. Some are whiter than the other. So now I'm using Gina K Connect glue. I just ran a bead around the edge to apply my frame. There we go. So I do this to both cards here. And now I applied them, I didn't show you, but I applied them to A2 size vertical fold card bases made with paper tray ink white cardstock. Now I'm choosing a stamp from Hello Winter. And these are beautiful scripty stamps. I use this little grid, transparency, from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm just going to line up this stamp where I'd like it. I do this a lot to make sure that it's where I want it because, you know, you've done all this work on your background. You don't want to wreck it now. I've done it before. You don't want to wreck it. And look at these darn magnets. They're so strong that they keep getting stuck together. There we go. So now I'm using VersaFine Clear Nocturne ink, and I'm going to stamp onto the acetate. And I'm just going to make sure it's where I want it to be on the final card. There we go. I'm just deciding, is this where I want it to be? Yeah, it looks good to me. I think that this is a beautiful stamp set. It's so pretty. And the tree stencil, you just can't go wrong with this tree stencil. You really can't. I'm just trying to decide if I want to move it over, and I decide no, I'm going to keep it the way it is. Now, the nice thing about a Misty is that you can restamp if you don't get a really good image. New stamps sometimes need a little bit of conditioning. Sometimes you can get a bit of a spotty stamp. Now, usually Jaded Blossom stamps are pretty darn good right off the bat, but you know, every once in a while, they need to be conditioned a bit, stamped a couple of times. So that's what I do. I just make sure I have it in a Misty so I can get a nice solid stamping. There we go. Isn't that pretty? Yeah, I love how that turned out. I actually toyed with doing some white heat embossing, but I was worried that in certain spots it wouldn't show up because of the backgrounds weren't dark enough. So now I'm using the Take Time to Chill Out stamp. Now that's kind of a stamp from that same set that you can sort of build a sentiment. I thought that was kind of fun. So that's what I did. I have to stamp it twice. And I did the same thing, actually. I stamped it on the transparency first. I didn't show you, but that's what I did. I'm using a dry eraser chalkboard eraser, just to apply some pressure there, just to save my fingers. It's a Jennifer McGuire tip. Isn't that pretty? Now look, there's a little blob of black there. This is my trick. I'm using a Secura white Jelly Roll pen, and I'll just dab it over the boo-boo, and no one will see it. It's just fabulous. So now I'm using Pretty Pink Posh sparkling confetti mix, and I'm using my Studio Katia embellishment wand, and I'm using glossy accents as the glue, and I'm adding them. I'm just sprinkling them around on the card. And you know how I said I always like odd numbers, you know, kind of straddle the sentiment, stuff like that. So really I'm just adding a little bit of sparkle, and you know, it's not in your face embellishment because they're clear. And it doesn't really take away from the background, which I know is a little bit busy because of the color, but I just think it looks fabulous. So, and I think this would look great with any color combo that you choose. You know, if you pick complementary colors, you can't go wrong. So there we go. So now I've just popping on all of these. I've got a little bit of, I realized, geez, that glossy accent's seeped out, and I better just replace that with a bigger sequence because you're going to see that glossy accents and that'll be a mess. You don't want that. So I'll put a bigger sequin on there, or confetti, I guess it's called. And there we go. And I'll finish adding a couple more, and then I'll be done with that. So are you loving this release? Make sure to swing by the Jaded Blossom blog and follow the hop. I believe that every time we have a hop, someone wins a stamp set of their choice. So that's always a good reason to do it. But also you get tons of fun inspiration. I think this is a really good release to just get the whole thing. I really liked it all this time. I really can't say anything negative. It's been, you know, I love that pine cone die set. Love, love, love. I love this tree stencil. I love the tree stamps. Just the little mugs are adorable. You just can't go wrong. There we go. So now, of course, I can't help myself. I'm going to be using my Nuvo Crystal Drops in Simply White, and I'm adding a droplet to the center of each of those confetti pieces. So you get the sharp white with a little bit of glimmer from the edge of the confetti. So that'll be it. So thank you so much for stopping by, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.